Hello and a very warm welcome to this special broadcast. I'm Molly Gambhir. Over the next 30 minutes, we get you stories about the aspirations, trials and tribulations of women in different parts of the world. We will tell you why activists are cheering a new rape law, while in France, 11 have been found guilty of harassing a teenage girl. In Syria, women are rising against their own family members to fight for their basic rights. Whereas in Afghanistan, a female photographer is capturing the turmoil in the country. All this and much more awaits you on this special broadcast. First, a quick check on the top stories making headlines. Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar makes a stopover in Iran ahead of his Russia visit, where he met with President-elect Ibrahim Raisi and held talks with his Iranian counterpart Javad Zarif. Haiti President Jovenel Moïse assassinated at his home by unidentified attackers. The interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph says that he is now in charge of the country. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi expands his cabinet. 43 ministers take oath. Senior ministers holding portfolios of health, education, IT and environment make way for newcomers. Sweden's parliament votes to reinstate the caretaker Prime Minister Stefan Löfven to lead the new government. Only 173 MPs out of 349 members voted against the Prime Minister, falling short of the majority needed to oust him. The Taliban claimed to capture the provincial capital of the Badghis province. Fierce fighting erupted after the terrorists captured all the surrounding districts of the province. Amid the growing turmoil in Afghanistan, Russia says it will do everything possible, including the use of its biggest overseas military base in Tajikistan, to defend its allies from any threat. The Spanish government has approved a legislation that toughens the country's laws against rape. The government has decided to define all non-consensual acts of sex as sexual assault. The draft still requires parliamentary approval, which is expected by the end of the year. The proposed law says a woman's silence or passivity do not mean consent. The legislation also elaborates on how not showing opposition cannot be an excuse to act against another person's will. The Spanish government saying that this is their way to comply with the Istanbul Convention.
The most important thing is that it focuses on the woman's consent as the fundamental aspect on which crimes against sexual freedom are based. In this way, Spain complies with the Istanbul Convention on the maxim that only yes is yes, making it clear that silence or passivity does not mean consent, or that not showing opposition cannot be an excuse for acting against the will of the victim.
Spain has blurred the distinction between sexual assault and abuse. This comes in the wake of the infamous gang rape of an 18-year-old woman in 2016 at Pamplona. The perpetrators were initially indicted for sexual abuse instead of assault. The accused had filmed the assault, in which the victim was silent, and the court interpreted that as consent. That had underlined the fact in Spain, for an act to be considered rape, there must be violence and intimidation against the victim. The bill has now defined sex without clear consent as rape, and it does not need involvement of violence and intimidation.
Another very important part of the law concerns the distinction between sexual abuse and sexual assault. From now on, all sexual conduct without consent will be considered sexual assault. The crime of rape will therefore no longer only be reserved for cases involving violence or intimidation.
The new law also features jail penalties for sexual harassment at the workplace and catcalling as well. Women and rights groups have hailed the new legislation, calling it a historic step towards women's safety. The bill has been termed as only yes is yes by the media and the government.
Creo que es una ley que va directamente al cerebro de los hombres. A algunos hombres, ¿no? Pero sí, que entiendan que el sí es sí y el no es no.
Spain has always been considered a pioneer in ensuring women's safety and rights. The country had passed a law against domestic violence in the year 2004. In a landmark cyberbullying trial, 11 people have been convicted for harassing a teen online over her anti-Islam videos. The court in Paris tried 13 people from across France, aged 18 to 30, who were charged with harassing Mila. The 11 convicted people have been handed suspended sentences, which means they will not serve time in jail unless they are convicted for other offences. Some convicts have been ordered to pay damages of 1,500 euros and legal fees of 1,000 euros. The teenager was sent over 100,000 abusive messages, including death threats. The threats were so grave that she was even forced to change schools and was given police protection. The French teenager had posted anti-Islam videos on social media in 2020. Since then, while some see Mila as a fighter for free speech, others believe her videos were provocative and Islamophobic. The case led to a fierce debate about free speech. Hate speech laws in France criminalize hatred against a group based on their religion or race, but they do not prevent people from criticizing or insulting religious beliefs. Earlier, President Emmanuel Macron came to the teenager's defense, saying that the law is clear and that people have the right to criticize and to also raise their voice. In the middle of a civil war, women in Syria are fighting another battle. The battle for keeping themselves safe from their own family members. Hundreds of women have come out on the streets to protest against honor killing. The protest took place after a 16-year-old girl was strangled to death by her own father. The girl was also raped by a relative over a year ago. Violence against women, especially minors, is very prevalent in Syria. Femicide is committed in the name of just tradition, even religion. But activists argue that no religion justifies killing.
The recent events that took place in the city claimed lives of 4 women, including minors, some of whom were married under the legal age. These events are legitimized under the name of customs, traditions, religion, and getting rid of shame. Of course, we as women's organizations condemn these things, and we protested today in front of the home of the most recent victim.
Demonstrators marched wearing white t-shirts marked "No to Violence" in red letters. The latest incident in Hasake coming after members of a woman's tribe shot her dead after she tried to run away with a man that she loved.
This is a protest against any family that gives itself the right to deprive the freedom of any woman. We and other organizations have submitted a written petition to the Court of Justice to punish the people who commit any crime against women.
33-year-old Afghan photographer Radha Akbar has been using art to express herself. Apart from her striking self-portraits, Akbar has showcased some of Afghanistan's powerful female figures and narrated their stories. But with every photograph clicked, she asks a question: will she survive? This kind of freedom in Afghanistan brings along many risks. Our next report tells you more.
Dear lost treasures, I feel deeply saddened to be here today. We are living the darkest moment of our time, helplessly watching the daily loss of life. Journalists, writers, activists, human rights defenders, mothers, fathers, children. Stories are denied by the same people who came here to fight terrorism and claimed they would save Afghan women.
This is 33-year-old Afghan photographer, designer and writer Radha Akbar. Her independence, her heritage, it all reflects in her art, especially in her self-portraits. But the freedom to express in Afghanistan comes with a deadly risk.
These days are very hard. I feel that I'm very close to death these days. That is how I feel. Every day, every day feels like it's the last day. And it's not just me. Everyone that I know is going through the same. And we don't deserve this.
Each artist, reminiscent of the Mexican feminist artist Frida Kahlo, Akbar is often captured wearing a crown with heavy gold and silver jewelry in her self-portraits. But today she is having to live with constant threats for her work, showcasing some of Afghanistan's powerful female figures. Akbar has been behind a series of exhibitions celebrating International Women's Day at Kabul's former royal palaces. Last year, she used mannequins to portray exceptional figures including a filmmaker and a footballer, and also an Afghan woman, Roxana, who was stoned to death by the Taliban for fleeing a forced marriage. Radha Akbar was forced to host her latest art exhibition online on Aberzanen, which translates into Superwomen in English, after multiple threats. It was broadcast to empty chairs set up at the Kabul Museum. In Afghanistan, high-profile women including journalists, judges and activists have been assassinated since September 2020. The number stands at 180. The United States and the Afghan government blame it on the Taliban. Radha Akbar has lived alone for 10 years in a Kabul apartment. With threats looming, she has no choice but to restrict her movements around the country.
They might be able to kill me or remove me, my physical body, but they will never be able to kill my spirit. They will never be able to remove or erase my thoughts. My thoughts will be transformed to the next generations, with or without me. And I will never forgive them.
Like other civilians in Afghanistan, Akbar dreams of a peaceful nation and a better world for the future generations.
I have a lot of dreams. I have a lot of plans to work for this country, and because I don't want the next generation, generations go through what I went through. I want them to live in a more, in a better country.
But with each passing day and an emboldened Taliban, Akbar says it is hard to keep hope alive.
I don't know what will happen. I don't know what will be the future. I don't know if I would even be alive to see the future.
Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Away from the politics and the bloodshed in Afghanistan, 5 Afghan athletes are preparing to represent their country at the Tokyo Olympics. In a country trapped in a vicious cycle of violence, how have they managed to emerge as world-class athletes? Our next report tells you more.
Kimi Yusufi and Shah Mahmood are living their dream. In a few weeks from now, they will be in Tokyo, representing Afghanistan at the 100-meter sprint event. But their journey so far hasn't been an easy one. 25-year-old Kimia Yusufi was born in Iran and for a large part of her life lived as a refugee there. Her family was forced to flee from their home in the middle of the night when the Taliban stormed to power in the 1990s. In a nation where girls were not even allowed to go to school under the Taliban, she says it feels surreal to be representing Afghanistan for a second time at the Olympics.
After participating in Rio 2016 Olympics 5 years ago, my dream has always been to become a world record holder one day. I'm sure this will happen one day. To achieve this dream, I have always exercised hard, day and night with the support of my family. I have also ignored all my other pastimes and programs that every girl does in life. For example, going out with my friends or spending time with family. And I just practiced.
Kimia Yusufi considers herself lucky. Growing up in Iran gave her access to sporting facilities. But for Shah Mahmood, who holds a national record in the 200-meter event, the worn-out track is all that he has had to train on.
Our sports facilities are minimal, especially in athletics. We do not have a standard track surface or special shoes to prepare like athletes in other countries, such as the United States. There is a lot of fighting in Farah, the province where I live. I remember during the holy month of Ramzan, a few years ago, I would do stretching exercises at home at 11 o'clock at night, then do sprint exercises outside my house very quickly and go back home as soon as I can. Due to insecurity and war, I have been out of training many times.
Both are a part of the 5-member Afghan team at the Olympics. Though neither of them is a favorite for a medal, but to break their own best time is what they are aiming for. The possibility of the Taliban returning to power is all too real for them. Kimia, after her retirement, wants to train young girls so that they too can have the opportunities that she has had. To represent and bring glory to Afghanistan as an athlete at the highest level. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Deconstructing gender norms and stereotypes, a group of Argentine women are now taking up masonry, building houses and making a statement. These women are breaking away from roles often thoughtlessly assigned to women. Here's more.
These women are part of the dissident deconstruction group, preparing materials for plastering a wall. These women aren't just employees at a construction site. They are at the helm of a movement, one that aims to get more and more women to be part of construction work, often considered a man's job.
It should be like this, that we no longer call the male builder, but just the builder, to see who shows up, or the plumber, to see who shows up. But today I feel that it is still very necessary to be separate, that we create our own methods, because even today there is still an issue with economic autonomy that we can't even reach.
Thought to not have the strength for masonry, women in this sector would often be given cleaning or other tasks. However, these Argentine women are now abandoning such roles. They now mix cement, build walls and roofs, break stone, and most importantly, break macho stereotypes.
When there are men and women in construction, in general, it is very crazy, but women are automatically relegated to cleaning tasks. So to deconstruct that, there is no underlying malice, no internationality, it's just the way it is.
In the period of 2003 to 2010, the presence of women in this sector increased by 131%. However, that still only makes up for about 5% of the construction union in Argentina. Salaries remain inadequate and often these women are not afforded the same recognition as their male counterparts. To combat this, Valeria Salguero created a Facebook group, Masonry, a Woman's Thing. Within a month, she had over 6,000 followers. Not without a significant share of sexist comments though. What a surprise.
I have received many sexist comments, not only from men, but also from women who've told me to go and wash the dishes or called me a feminazi. A lot of things that nowadays is normal to hear. That seems crazy and should no longer be said, but it still happens.
However, this initiative landed her an offer from a construction company to train and employ a crew. A diverse crew trained by a woman. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
It's a dream come true for Iranian sprinter Farzaneh Fasihi. She has qualified for the women's 100 meters at the Tokyo Olympics under the universality quota. The quota allows one female and one male participant each from a number of countries to participate in the Olympics, provided no other athlete from the same gender has met the qualification criteria.
It was like a dream for me. I felt like I was dreaming. I felt like I hadn't woken up yet. I was shocked. The feeling is indescribable and I truly wish every girl who is trying for this to be able to experience this feeling one day. My family had tears of joy. The day I got the news, I was at my parents' house with my husband. They all cried with me. I'm the first female Iranian legionnaire who could race and be a part of European clubs. I'm the first person in 57 years who's going to the Olympics and will be doing the 100-meter sprint, and this is truly an honor for me.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.